Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you're calling in from. It's so great to see you on today's webinar. I'm incredibly excited for this conversation that we're going to have over the next 45 minutes or so. I can see some of your fantastic names pouring in, some very familiar names, some people I've spoken to this week. So it's great to see you, Deb. I can see you coming in, and a few other people. Lovely to see you, and some new names, of course. I am joined here today by the absolute fantastic Tracy Owen. Hey Tracy, how are we doing?
I am great, thank you.
Good stuff, good stuff. You will get a proper introduction, I can assure you that. But for everybody joining today, you know what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about how you can get more time freedom in your business. This is a topic of conversation which I find myself in more than I ever bargained for, more than I ever thought we could do. Because I think the more we progress in our business lives and our general lives, we tend to realize that the biggest currency and the thing that we're all trying to optimize for in the end is time. So actually integrating that concept of how we can unlock time and get time freedom in our businesses today is always a fascinating topic for us individually, and of course as a community of business owners, business operators, and of course one thing that we really strive to do within Waybook as well. So for those of you who I've not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name's Mike. I'm one of the co-founders here at waybook.com, and we are a knowledge management tool that enables you to get your business on the same page and empower your team. But today we're not here to talk about Waybook. We're not here to talk about me, in fact. We are here to talk about the one and the only Tracy. Tracy is a growth accountant, a best-selling author, and just an absolutely fantastic person, entrepreneur, and as I've recently learned, crafter as well. So if we've got time to talk about what you're doing with all the time you freed up, Tracy, we'd love to get you to show some crafts as you're in your craft room there. Tracy's had an amazing career as she's continued to build out her own accounting practice, not just in the traditional way, but in a way that means that she can design the life that she truly wants and create a business that is a thriving business, supporting her team, supporting her clients, and of course, supporting the lifestyle that she truly wants. So without further ado, Tracy, welcome. How are you doing today?
What an introduction. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
You're welcome. I can't take any credit for it when I'm just talking about you, Tracy. So I'm only as good as the facts that I'm given there, and you've given me good facts. Tracy, where are you calling from today? Because you're not in the UK.
I'm not in the UK, no. I made my home in the Costa Blanca in Spain in 2016. So even though I run the business in the UK, I actually live in Spain now.
Amazing, sounds good. And you did ask me earlier, should I close my blind? Is it too sunny? That's just Tracy's way of confirming that everybody knows that it is sunny. So as we are just about to hear a little bit more from Tracy, I'd encourage all of you, because we are people tuning in from all over the world, please do get in touch with us and continue to communicate with us. You can message us in the chat. So please say hello in the chat now. Tell us where you're calling from, and perhaps if you've got sun like Tracy and I do here in London. And then we also have the Q&A panel. So if you have any burning questions, then please do ask that in Q&A, and we'll make sure that we get them over to Tracy as well. But Tracy, to kick us off, I've kind of shared the broad strokes of who you are and what you do, but let's go a little bit deeper. Can you just share a little bit about you and maybe a bit more about your current setup, and of course, what led you to writing your recent book, 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, so I started my business back in 2002 as a single parent, and it's a very similar story to a lot of bookkeepers and accountants. We become self-employed because we're good at what we do, and I found that I wanted to grow the business. I found a love of marketing, which it's kind of something that as a business owner you need to do, and so as the business grew I needed help. And the business has been bigger than it is now. It's gone a little bit smaller as we've consolidated things. You learn by your mistakes, obviously. And now, when in 2016, I decided to move to Spain, and I needed to process the business to make sure that it actually ran smoothly and kept the culture. That's the main thing. It's keeping the culture that I'd already built whilst I worked in the business and was in the office every day. and I've just loved every minute of it. And it's kind of like, now I tend to work on the business. I haven't done a tax return since 2013.
I can
So
I can hear the excitement in you saying that, and actually having lots of friends that are accountants, I know the sentiment behind that. Before
yeah,
we get into the kind of full processing and systematization journey you did, you said that you started your own accounting practices because you're good at what you did. And what I kind of see how that works, but what was success for you when you were first starting out? What were you aiming for and working towards?
it wasn't, I think, I hadn't really thought it. It was in my 20s and I needed to do something to keep a roof over my daughter's head. So kind of success when I started wasn't really, I wished I had that kind of like mindset back then, and I really didn't. It was kind of something that came to me as I got older. But like, I think the first year I actually never touched a self-assessment tax return was kind of a one big success for me, because I think so many people like still being the accountant in their business that actually once it felt like I'd stopped being an accountant, become a business owner. So that in itself was probably one of the biggest like mindset changes, and the success of when I did a January and I hadn't even seen, I wasn't busy, I could take time off if I wanted to. That's kind of where success came.
That's really nice. Okay, when the business started working for you rather than you just doing everything. And did you always know it was going to be that way? Did you have any moments before you got to that point of it working for you where you almost identified a difference in the expectations you had from being a business owner and the reality of the day-to-days that you were feeling?
But over time, so at first I thought maybe that's what I wanted to do. My daughter was only 8. So I maybe thought I wanted to work in bookkeeping and just doing the bookkeeping and accounts and payroll. I'd already been in industry, so I've been an office manager for an electrical contractors. So kind of knew a busy life anyway. And I was enjoying it to the point where I wasn't. So I kind of like, when people started to work for me, I realized my talents were actually elsewhere, and it was getting the energy out of helping people rather than data entry.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I guess this comes down to kind of what you want to do, where your skill sets lies, and ultimately finding leverage on your time as well, right? In terms of how can you maximize your time, and then once you've achieved that, what do you do with the additional leverage that you've created from your time, which I know we'll get more into. So looking at that point, you started to realize that you didn't want to be in the day-to-day, and you'd been busy for a long time. Was there a tipping point that in your mind that you decided that you wanted to run the business differently, or was it kind of an iterative process? What made you choose that you wanted to almost remove yourself from the day-to-day?
In 2016, my granddad was poorly. He was 94, but he had cancer, and I was the typical business owner. So I was going into the office first, I was leaving the office last, and my day was literally spent answering questions from the team. I was that person that I kind of like, and I was like, I was okay with that at first. And then my granddad died. And as I say, he was 94, he had an amazing life. But I realized that I had to go, instead of going to the hospital every evening, I had to go home, and I wasn't happy at home. And it was that point I realized that I'd created a life that I didn't enjoy at all. I loved helping my clients, and I loved going to the office, but I didn't want to be that business owner. So that's when I looked at ways in which that I wanted to find my happy, because I wasn't happy. So within a year, I'd actually got divorced and I'd moved to Spain. So I kind of like found my happy. And to do that, we have to be able to create time for ourselves. And that's where the time freedom came from.
Amazing. So it very much was born in this kind of your personal need to make the business work for you rather than the business need itself. I think what's interesting hearing this, and actually we obviously have the pleasure of speaking to hundreds of business owners. some people might be listening to this being like, do you know what? I just want to be in. I want to be in the fire all day, every day, going hard. I don't want to take the time out. And that's also fine, right? But I think the important thing is the strategies that you take in order to find that time freedom is arguably the same. And it's more about the application of what you do with that time that is the different part, right?
It is. It's changing from being busy for busy sake to actually being in a productive way. So like we all like, time is the one thing that we cannot make more of. We can make absolutely anything, you know, more of anything else, but we can't, we all have the same hours in a day.
Yeah.
And working in a productive way, and you're doing the things that you enjoy and the things that you should be doing to move your business forward, then actually you feel more fulfilled. So you're not as stressed, you're not as tired. You know, your mind, your mental health is much better. You can afford to take time to spend with your family. Whereas in your busy for busy sake, you're not organized, you're not, you know, you don't know what's in your diary, you let your emails rule your day kind of mentality, then actually you can be busy all day and get absolutely nothing done.
Yeah, you tend to find this a lot in early stage entrepreneurship as well, where people are bragging about the 16-hour days they're pulling and the 20-hour days they've done, and you're like, cool, what have you done? Emails and meetings and whatever else. So okay, so we will I want to really tap into this in terms of the strategies and the approach that you've taken. I mean, you've written the book on it, right? So I know that that's really what I want to go into. But before we move on to that, let's just look at that second part in terms of what you've chosen to do with the time. So can you just share with us what your daily life looks like now, bearing in mind that you are still running a successful, profitable business?
Okay, so most of my time now, we do have VIP clients, which I mentor through to help them to grow their business, and that's where a lot of my energy is. I get energy from them. I don't like the term CEO, but I'm going to kind of use it. So I do the strategy type stuff for TI Accountancy. I meet with the team. So the team, the business in the UK is TI Accountancy, and that's now an employee-owned business. So there's 3 members of the team that actually directors now and have a small, so they actually own part of the business. So I meet with them a lot and we go through strategies, and it's kind of a mentoring them as well to help the business to grow. And yeah, it's just marketing and things and doing the stuff that I really enjoy doing rather than the data entry, which I did love when I started, but I feel like I grew out of. I don't do my own emails. Like I have somebody who I only get the important ones. I stopped letting somebody like email rule my life. And yeah, there's a book I read recently, and it said it really well. It's about having a 10-80-10 rule. So you do the first 10% of something, which is the strategy, and it's giving somebody a really good base to know what to do, and then giving the work to somebody else to do the actual work that you shouldn't be doing, and then taking the 10% back to check it, make sure it's perfect for the company that you've got, and then sending it out.
Amazing. We're going to jump into what it is to process a business, but jumping on that, how much of this is actually a kind of a systematization, a process approach, and how much of this is just good management? Because the 10-80-10 thing is almost like a management philosophy as well, isn't it? Or is there a clear divide in the world here?
I think everything is systems and processes. I think it's the only way to organize things. And it doesn't just mean that the systems and processes that are on Waybook. I mean, the systems and processes that you have in your own life, managing your calendar, managing everything else. As long as there's structure and organization, it makes life easier. So some it might make it sound a bit boring, but it really isn't, because you can do the fun things with the time that it gives you back.
Yeah, it's so funny. You know, I have this thing, Tracy, a lot, and obviously I spend all my day just speaking to people using Waybook, and I'm aware that the words that you can use, processes, procedures, systems, like SOPs, things like that, those words can be quite boring as words, but when actually you see a system in place, I don't know whether I'm just really nerdy with it, but I get such a level of excitement. And you're so right, that it's actually the life and the kind of growth that can unlock by having them in there. Okay, so everything is systems and processes. Talk to me about 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I need to make sure I'm saying my threes and threes right. What is 1, 2, 3? And then we'll, yeah, over to you.
1, 2, 3 is the book that I wrote about. It's kind of my story built into blueprints to help other people do it. So it's about your growth strategy, about running a team, it's about your systems and processes, and it's about your marketing. And then once you've got those in place, it's then about stepping away. So you need those 4 things in place before you can even, start to cut ties and to let things roll on their own. It came because so many people used to say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky to be able to run your business from Spain." And I got fed up of saying, this isn't luck, this is hard work. I actually had to put the work in first to be able to make this possible. So then after you said that, people will say, well, how did you do that? So I kind of that's where the idea came from. And I just wanted other people to be able to find they're happy. I know not everyone's happy is moving to Spain and running their business from there. I understand that. But it is about finding you're happy and not being that person that kind of goes into the office first and goes home late at night. Love
it. Well, I'm going to be one of those people that caused you to write the book and say, how do you do it? Talk us through it. That's why we're here.
I think a lot of it was already in place. Like I said, I love marketing and I love helping people. So that kind of philosophy was already there. And I read the E-Myth when I was like a couple of years into my business, and it made so much sense. But there was just me. And if I could give anybody one tip, that if they're working as a sole person in their business, is don't ignore the fact that you have to write your processes now. I really wished I'd done it, because I tried again when we were a bigger team, and I wrote all the processes that I thought would need it in the business, and nobody followed them. Nobody read them. They were just a document. I don't even think they'd been on Dropbox at this point. And it wasn't until I was thinking about starting working from home to give myself some more time and to not be answering all the questions. And I read Derek Sivers, where he says about, when somebody comes into his office, rather than just giving an answer, he would write it and give them a process to actually do. And I was like, that might work. So I came up with a massive project. It wasn't going to happen overnight. And I actually asked the team to write their own processes. We gave them deadlines, and it gave them the responsibility. They took ownership of the work that they did, and they all just came together. And like I said, at first we put them into Dropbox and had a chart, and it worked for a while, but then I left. And after I left, I stopped doing the inductions for the business, and somebody else in the team started to do them. And I didn't actually realise that the processes weren't as important to them as they are to me. And I was doing a conversation with a new start, and he said to me that he didn't even know where the Dropbox, the procedure manual was. And I was quite hurt as a business owner, because that's my culture. So these people were being left to work it out for themselves. And that's when I found Waybook. And honestly, so we put all our processes and procedures onto Waybook, but the actual gift was the induction. So now the induction is on Waybook, and it's back to being me. So literally I've done videos. It's a 3-week process. They get to do a little bit every day. But they understand the culture because it's coming out of my mouth. They can see it and they can feel it. And the 2 people that have come on board since we've actually been using that process are much more instilled to the business. Literally, we know that they're keepers because they get it. And that's kind of where it is for me. It's kind of more, it's in the induction and people to know what your culture is.
Yeah, that's a great point, and also keeping them on board with that knowledge. So just pulling back, so your advice to people is, even when there's just you, write it down, get it out of your head.
Yes.
Do you know what's really interesting about that? When we speak to people who are looking at Waybook and looking at kind of centralizing their knowledge, typically people will come in when there's maybe like 15, 20 people, and then obviously much bigger businesses. But occasionally we do get some people that are kind of 1 or 2 or 3 people. And I always say to them, have you done this before? And without doubt, if they're speaking to us with them 1, 2 people in their business, it's not their first business. They've done it, they've been there, and they just know that actually writing your documentation, writing your processes when it is just you, means that actually you scale faster and you can go through that really efficiently.
Absolutely.
To this point about getting people to write their own processes, can you just explain firstly, what sort of processes are we talking about, and how was that experience with the team? So what were you asking for them? How did it work, and how did it come out?
Okay, so with running an accountancy and bookkeeping practice, obviously we have a lot of operations. So using different softwares and having different people do different things within the operations of the practice. So that's where we started, because that's the easy bit. It's what they do day in, day out. And what we did, kind of first got them to write a list of all the stuff that they do. So that's what came. I didn't tell them it all in one go. I just like, can you write me a list of absolutely everything you do in the workplace? And then so what we did is we had a big massive organization chart with whose responsibility it was afterwards. A lot of them were still mine, by the way. I did write a lot of processes, and when we were doing the first draft. But then what we said was like, come on, let's do 2 a week. Like literally, some of them are in video form, especially the ones that are in operations, because it's so much easier to show somebody. Some of them are in flow charts. Some of them are just in bullet points, and it just works. It depends what works for what process. There is very simple things, the stuff that when you're a new employee, you would feel like it's a stupid question to ask somebody in the office. You know, like, what happens if I'm first in, or what happens if I'm last in? What happens, you know, lunches and break times, who's doing what? Stuff like how to fill your timesheet out, very basic stuff that people don't really want to ask because they're new to the company. So we just input them into, you know, how to answer the phone even, because you've got to keep a culture. It's really important that everybody actually answers the phone in the same way, so that the clients know that you are working for that company. So just simple things that they went down to that level. So
I really like that. And I think the interesting thing you're saying there, that people don't want to ask. I always have this vision of, even if people do ask it, people can't be expected to remember 100% of everything immediately, right? So even if they do ask, it's like when you're at an event and you meet someone and you just can't remember their name. You might ask their name 2 or 3 times. You're not asking a 4th time. You're just calling them mate or dude or something because you can't remember the name. And it's exactly the same with these kind of like mundane practices that we have to do. But the flip side of that, you can guarantee that anybody who doesn't want to be asking those questions is probably asking someone who doesn't want to be asked as well. And you made this point earlier about you being the person that asks or answers all of the questions. That's a lot of your time telling people what to do if they're first in and how to answer the phone and everything. So, but I love this. So you've empowered people to basically say, what is everything that you do? And then secondly, ask them to kind of 2 a week document what it is. What did you learn from that procedure? Did you notice?
Yeah, it was a great procedure for me because I got to check them all. So there's some things that I realized that some people were doing that others weren't, which were brilliant from a customer service point of view. So then we just like pushed it out across the company because they'd been quiet and not told anybody they were doing this kind of stuff. There was things where we could fill gaps, whereas when I was like checking them, I could see that there was sometimes things that weren't quite right because nobody taught them how to do it correctly anyway. So we just improved them. And as a business now, the great thing about having your business processed is if something does go wrong, which it doesn't often, but when it does, it takes away the blame culture. You don't blame a person, you blame a procedure. And if that procedure hasn't worked, you sit between the management team and you find out why that didn't work. And it suddenly doesn't, it's not anybody's, there's no blame culture. And I think that's amazing, because that's what we need to be as leaders, is to help people.
I love it. I know I'm quite into F1, and I know that Mercedes as a team have this very strong culture of blaming the problem, not oh no, you're right. I've got a little F1 car here behind me, yeah, they have this culture of blaming a problem, and actually having the objective documentation means that you can actually get around that problem, which I love. In fact, somebody that I absolutely love in the Waybook community, Kristen from Upleveling Your Business, she does this amazing thing where she has everyone as part of their team, part of their KPIs is every week they have to improve their Waybook documentation. And what she says is it's not necessarily saying improve how you do things, it's actually around improve the documentation of the things that we're doing. And she says having that level of abstractivity from it almost means that people are saying, oh, do you know what, I've just reworded this, or I've swapped this image for a video, or I've actually just added this step in. But that enables them to think about how they're doing the work almost without them. And she says it's just been an insane kind of way of growing their operational excellence across the business and empowering people to do so. So
Definitely.
I love it. Okay, cool. So you've got your documents, and then you go to Spain, and nobody looks at it in Dropbox. You said that was hurtful. How hard was it to kind of reverse that and get people back into the processes that you'd built?
I think the induction helped, definitely, because what I did was I actually, once we'd done the induction, and I did that with Waybook as well, they actually helped me with the induction part of that. And then I just asked the team to redo the induction themselves. And I asked that, you know, it wasn't because I wanted them all to remember. That's not what it is. Some of them have been with me for over a decade. They know the culture, they know our mission statement. But I wanted them to check that it was right, but it was a reminder at the same time. So it kind of reminded them, because everyone, like, I've got certain people in the business who love policies and procedures. And then I've got other ones that you still need to push them gently up because it's not their priority. And, you know, it's working out who those people are. And the great thing about Waybook is it tells you, because you can see your members' progress to know what they've been on and how long it is since they've looked at stuff. So it's kind of like, it's a bit more, I mean, I don't micromanage. You can't micromanage from a different country. It's impossible. But I've never been a micromanager. I like to empower people. Like our business mission statement is treating your business as if it was our own. And it sounds a really simple statement, but it isn't, because what it does is it allows every single person in my team to just say that if they've got something that's something to do with a client, and they don't know what decision to make, all they have to do is think, well, what would I do if it was my business? And I say this in the induction, I say, like, so you've got empowerment. That's all you need to think is, if you make a decision on what you would do for your business, if it's what you would do, you do it. If you wouldn't do it for your own business, don't do it. And in my mind, you've made the right decision.
Love that. Yeah, simple principle that is not often used, I'm sure, as a thing. So I'm feeling some specifics. So we've got the small things about how we, you know, what do you do if you're the first in, how you answer the phone, things like that. In terms of your strategy and approach to the whole processing of the business, what would you say is the smallest thing that you did as a business owner that made the biggest difference?
Was giving it to the team to do. Like, literally, I tried to process the business twice before. Once when it was just me, and I kind of gave up because it was just me, which I wished I'd not done. And it's the tip I give everybody. In fact, it's in the book. And somebody who I know quite well actually said to me, because she works on her own, and she said, I never thought about it before, but I want things done if I ever take somebody on in the way that I do them. So she started writing down everything, and I'm like, that's brilliant. So, like, literally, it does. I have kind of sang that out because I do wish I'd done it. And the second time, when I wrote them myself, it was really hard to get the team on board. Whereas actually giving it to the team and giving them the responsibility and for them to own them, it came together really, really easily.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, it's also just the reality. Like, we as entrepreneurs and business owners sometimes do suffer from this complex that we always have the right answer. But the reality is, as soon as you've got a team, you probably don't know everything that all of your team knows. So why not ask them? Because they
I
are the
don't have that
experts.
philosophy. I hired people who were better at the things that I didn't want to do than I was.
Yeah, I love that. So it's so important. And what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced in this process of processing the business?
Uh, Time, I think, because obviously, especially when I was giving it to the team themselves, they still had their work to do. So we had to find time in, like, we call it non-productive time, because obviously we do client work. So non-client time, I had to be able to give them that time to actually make it happen, and to put aside myself away to actually, because it was quite time consuming for me to make sure everything was correct and checked and up in the system. And again, when it went to Waybook, we decided to check absolutely everything, because, as I said before, it wasn't always being used. Some bits were, by the way, some bits were being updated all the time, being used, some of it, but then there was big chunks of it that hadn't been touched for a while. So we had to make sure that everything was up to date when we moved it over to Waybook.
No, that makes sense. And typically there, if it's not centralized, structured and searchable, if it's not very close to your team, then it sort of decays over time anyway, in terms of knowledge and whatever else. So Tracy, you've shared why you've written the book, because people are asking you how, and you've kind of just shared with us the principles of how you do that. But on a practical note, what sort of tools do you use to do that? I know you said you used Waybook a lot in kind of centralizing and bringing everybody on the same page. What other tools have you used in this process?
For me to move to Spain, you mean, or to draw the business?
For about processing the business.
Um, we
Although
used.
now I am intrigued to know what tools you've used to move to Spain. I assume a plane,
I don't think I
is
used
involved.
any. I think I just, some people may say I had a midlife crisis, but I don't think I did. No, to systemize the business, we also use a lot of other softwares. So we use a project management system, which most industries have. So we use Accountancy Manager that literally holds every single piece of client information. And it's because it's online, we can see it anywhere. So because of me working away in from Spain, we do have a work away policy in the business. So like, if any of our team want to go and like spend time in another country, they can, as long as they can have access to their laptop, then they're entitled to do that. A work from home policy. So we've kind of made everything digital in the business. So we use lots of softwares for everything. One of my favorite pieces of software is Asana, just as like literally, and it's everything's documented on what I need to do that day. My calendar isn't just filled with meetings. What I do on a Friday before I leave work is I look at what I need to do next week, and that goes into my calendar around the other stuff that's already there, so that I know if it's a big project and I know I have to do it, it goes in my calendar before even meetings get there. Right, so there is stuff in my calendar I know for the next couple of weeks that is a project I'm working on. I put them rocks in first, like literally to make sure they get done. So that really works. So it's kind of just software tools about organization.
Okay, no, makes perfect sense. So centralizing, digitalizing, and making sure that your structures and organizations together. So I know that you come from the processing from like an accountancy perspective, which I guess is very similar to other service-based, knowledge-intensive service-based firms. What are the core differences, would you say, between, let's first start with accounting practices and other knowledge-based consulting firms, and then broader businesses? Do these principles apply beyond?
I think other than the operation side, I think everything else is the same. Like, we still have a customer journey. Like, my customer journey is the one, in my Waybook, my customer journey is the one I work with the most. And it literally starts from what happens when, somebody comes in an email, or somebody comes in from a lead magnet on the website. It actually starts there, and then it has a what happens when a client leaves. It's massive, our customer journey one, because that to me is the most important, and it covers absolutely everything. And I think that customer journey Waybook should be, well, it is in every business. There's no different whether it's a manufacturing business, whether it's a SaaS business, or whether it's a service-based business. So, we all have a customer journey, and at least if we can make that centralized and know that everyone does the same thing, the customer service level is going to be high because everyone's doing the same thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of the value creation of all of our businesses, no matter what they are. And so would you say that the approach or process that people can go through, so I know the blueprints you have are more for professional service, is the approach of achieving that the same, or would you think that other businesses would need to approach that strategically differently?
No, I think that part, the actual customer journey part, they can, every single business owner can make sure and approach that the same. It's just when you get to the operations part that actually many businesses are different. Service businesses are quite similar, but even ours, so we don't have the bookkeeping part of our business in our own business Waybook. We have it as part of our operations, but every other company should have what happens with the bookkeeping part as part of their business Waybook. So each one's slightly different. But the service-based ones are very similar. Manufacturing, because I've never manufactured anything, in my mind, I think it would probably be more complicated. It probably isn't to somebody in that industry. But then you've got all the SaaS businesses that use software. To me, their processes are all going to be very similar. They're just selling a different product.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. We actually see, obviously, we've got quite a big template library within Waybook, and we're always interested to see the usage of the different templates. And you can guarantee that a lot of the most Waybooks will end up redeeming some of the same templates, because fundamentally, what are the business operations that need doing, and just go in. And it's also the things of, if we think about our time and energy as an entrepreneur and as business operators, why would we reinvent the wheel on the things that actually don't need reinventing, let alone the first time for our business, but also on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, in terms of which goes back to your original point of process a business and get it sorted. Now, I'm going to be turning my eyes very soon to the audience in terms of looking at the webinar chat here and the Q&A. We've been relatively quiet, so thanks for jumping in, the people who have been jumping in. It's great to see you chatting away. But if you've got any questions, now's the time for you to put it into the chat or the Q&A. And whilst we keep our eyes on that, one of the final questions from me, Tracy, is what would you say is the one piece of advice you'd give to an entrepreneur or business owner that is sitting here watching this, deciding, do you know what, I am going to systematize the business, I'm going to process the business. What is your one piece of advice in order to help them get going?
Read the email and then read my book afterwards.
Yeah, Tracy, you're an author now. You can't be promoting other people's books above yours. But
I told on LinkedIn only a couple of days ago that my book is a perfect follow-up to the E-Myth, and I was like, you don't actually realize what a huge compliment that is.
Honestly,
my book shows you how to do things. It's like a blueprint, and it's kind of like a step by step. And so it's kind of, and it's just plan it out. Kind of give yourself time and plan it out. It's not going to happen overnight. It just doesn't. It's kind of, and it makes sure it evolves, because it needs to be a live thing. You can't just, I think so many businesses sometimes think it's a tick box exercise to kind of write your policies and procedures, and then they go, there you go, it's done. It's not that. It has to be a live working document that gets amended all the time when things happen.
Yeah, I love that. I can feel how much of a compliment that is for E-Myth, because it is the Bible, isn't it? It is the one. And actually, Pablo in the chat here has also just said that the E-Myth is great, but also Traction EOS can help you out. Another amazing one. And I must say, when we when we started Waybook. We started Waybook because we'd previously grown and scaled a few businesses, and both Traction and eMyth were the kind of backbones in terms of what more do we need in order to implement this, and Waybook was born off the back of it. We've got a question here in the chat which is fascinating. So some of the most common excuses founders make when they're too busy are, we're a startup, we're still small, we don't need processes, we're they're going to slow us down, and we're agile. I know that I've heard that. How do you see this kind of decision? What's the moment a business should start having processes and systems?
I want to say from the start, I know it's hard because when people are startups, and like I said before, I wished I'd understood how important it was. And I can't emphasize that enough, because it would have been so much easier for me to do that, rather than trying to implement it a later date. And like I said, as I said, when I did it the first time on my own, it wouldn't be implemented. Nobody listened. It was kind of like, we're all busy, you know. So I think a deciding factor would be, one, if you ever want to be able to be more than just you in a business, because without it, you're not going to be able to do that efficiently. You can do it, but it's not efficiently. And two, if you ever want to take time off and ask, because even if you outsource, the joy of having processes is, even if you outsource some of the stuff like your admin or your marketing, even if it's not operations that you're outsourcing, actually having the policies and procedures there for that freelancer to be able to read and do your induction, so they understand your culture and that they do things the way you want them to, then surely that's the best, you know. So it is when you're on your own. I think it's really hard to push it, but it is at the start.
Can I ask you it's not actually that personal, but a question about you personally? Do you think in this way? Are you naturally a process operational minded person, or are you more chaotic or clear in terms of
focus? I wouldn't have said a long time ago that I was focused and organized, but actually I realized I am when it matters. So it's kind of like, I don't feel like I've got that chaotic entrepreneurial brain at all. I've kind of got a systemized, focused, determined brain that wants everything in order, because if it's not, it doesn't suit me very well.
Well, anybody who's watching the video of this can see these perfectly stacked boxes behind you beautifully on your wall. So that sort of should have answered my question before I asked it. But the reason why I ask is because when we speak to people, and picking up on this question here, quite often the being a startup and being chaotic and whatever else is almost an excuse for just being a bit sloppy where you don't have to be. And the person who's always put this well, and I really admire this thinking, a friend of mine called Andrew Crump, he has this concept of core versus explore. And he says that in every business, we have these two modes, core and explore, two types of work, two types of thinking, almost two different methodologies of working. And he says that as an entrepreneur, our job is to find new ways of doing new things. And that's the explore work. And actually, as soon as we've found a new way of doing new things, that could be how you design a Facebook ad, or how you do client delivery, or how you write an email, or actually how you make phone calls, anything. As soon as you found a good enough way, or maybe an optimal way of doing it, you document it, you delegate it, and then it becomes a core activity. And if you can make more of your core activities, you know, documented and given away, then you have more time to do the explore work, which is the unique stuff that actually people who are better at explore work can do. So
Yeah.
to this question, I always think of this model of core versus explore. If you document anything, you've turned it into core, even if you end up doing that task again, because you're just freeing up your own headspace.
That's really good thing to think about. I only allow myself to read one business book a month, because when I listen to them when I'm on dog walks, if I'm totally honest, but when I listen to a book, at the back of my mind constantly, and I don't mean it's every so often, I mean it's all the time, when somebody's giving you a bit of information from a business book, I'm constantly thinking, how can I implement that to improve TI accountancy. Like literally is there. So after I've listened or read a book, I have to have that time to let it sink in, to process it in my own mind, to see which bits that I've thought I could do. Because obviously not everything happens, but then I sit and think, right, no, that's still a good idea. Or that one's just because it was in the book. I thought, and I kind of like, and then I implement it. And then once that cycle's done, then I listen to a new book, because it's like, it goes back to your time freedom. You only get a certain amount of time. Why read a book and just move on to the next one and not implement anything? You've wasted that time. You need to actually learn from stuff. So kind of that's why I always thought that everyone thought like me, by the way, when they're listening to a book, that they would how to implement it into their own business. But apparently not.
I think everybody would like to think that way. I think not everybody has the time freedom in order to have the freedom and flexibility to implement it, because we get sucked into the whirlwind of the day-to-day, and that's kind of what keeps us busy. Tracy, it has been absolutely amazing to speak to you. Thank you so much for all of your time, your energy, and your insight moving forward. So I am keeping my eye on the chat and the Q&A, but I know we've answered some of those important questions anyway. But what I'm personally taking away from this today is, no matter where you are within your business, if you want to unlock some more of your time, be that to join Tracy in the Costa Blanca in Spain, or be that to actually focus on more higher value adding activities in your own business, spending time with family, or of course, starting another business, whatever you want. If you're looking at creating more time, more consistency, and more structure in your business, now is the time for you to start processing your business, as Tracy said. Now, one thing that I love from what you've said, Tracy, is actually how, yes, you can do everything yourself, but the more you empower your team to start documenting what they do and how they do that, you're not just getting buy-in from them, but you're also getting the real life information of how things are currently being done for you to then be able to work on the business and optimize those processes moving forward. And I think that's such an amazing point. Now, I know many people on this podcast here, on this webinar here, will be going straight away and jumping into this. But as Tracy said, you can read E-Myth first and then 1, 2, 3, Tracy's book. And I know that, Tracy, your book is so practical, so applicable. It basically has the blueprint of your firm, if anybody is running a professional service firm and just want to start where you've left off. So that's that. I'm assuming people can jump on your book from any of the standard retailers, Amazon, anything else?
Yeah, just get it from Amazon on 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Guys, thank you so much. We've got Deb in the chat here singing the praises. I know she's currently implementing on her accounting firm using TI Accountancy as well. So Tracy, thank you. Amazing. Tracy, thank you so much for your time. We wish you the absolute best of luck and continue on your journey of health, wealth, and happiness over there in Spain. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Any last words from you, Tracy?
Just enjoy processing, everyone. Just organized, get organized. It's great.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And for everybody else on the call today, thank you so much for joining us. We are running more and more of these smooth scaling webinars. So if you have a topic, a guest, perhaps yourself, where you'd love to come and share some of the hints, tricks and tips that you've done in getting some more smooth scaling in your business, let us know. We'd love to get you or your main inspiration involved. Until then, it's been a great time to spend the afternoon with you. Once again, my name's Mike. I'm one of the co-founders here at Waybook, and I really look forward to speaking to you very soon. Have a great one, and I look forward to
everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.